Okay, folks, how's it going? Just finished actually putting up the fence outside, and yeah, it was kind of tough. Wasn't that bad. I mean, it's actually a wooden fence, and we actually had the wood for quite some time. And because it was so hot this summer, I didn't put it up. And then it started to get rainy, and then today it was actually a few hours of just good weather. And by good, I mean not raining. It was sunny, and it wasn't like crazy windy cold. So I went out there, put up the fence. It doesn't look the prettiest. I mean, let's face it, I was a guy that didn't go to trade school. I went to business school for a reason. But it does look pretty good. Noel even said so. Eventually, we'll have the fence replaced and put one in the front and all that stuff. But anyhow, that's not what this video is about. This video is about Amazon's HQ2. I did several videos talking about this, talking about maybe Amazon's not even going to do it. Talked about that, where do I think it's going to actually go. Talked about certain cities that are actually, first, before they narrowed it down to the 20, the large number of cities all over the country and in Mexico and Canada that were vying for this Amazon HQ2. To me, it doesn't make sense for it to go in Mexico. It doesn't make sense for it to go in Canada, whether it's Toronto or any of these other places. Just doesn't make sense. So I knew that those were not going to be it. Then when you look at all these other cities, they were wanting to put it in various different places that were not what Amazon's looking for. They're looking for a downtown area, something that has good transportation, all of that type of stuff, right? And given the fact that Jeff Bezos really cares about mass transit and getting his workers around pretty quickly, and where they can leave campus. I mean, one of the big things is that here in Seattle, a lot of the folks they leave the campus, right? One of the things that he helped finance was the streetcar system. One of the streetcar lines here, he helped actually to do that because he wanted a way for his workers to actually get from the campus into downtown. But really and truly, the Amazon campus is technically downtown. So it's a pretty important thing for him. It really, you get the sense that he likes a very complex, cosmopolitan city, and not just your typical average American city, just being honest. And I did another video that narrowed it down and said I think it was going to be Atlanta, because Atlanta, Georgia is a warm city, has a lot of things to do. It has a great international airport. It has mass transit. It has a lot of tech workers, has a lot of great institutions of higher learning, a lot of cultural events and amenities. So Atlanta makes a lot of sense. However, over the week, there has been a leak that it's going to be in the DC area. Now, one of my subscribers mentioned that they think it's going to be in the DC area because obviously there's 3 locations there, and of course DC makes sense. DC makes sense just as much as Atlanta makes sense, and just as much as Chicago would make sense, or New York, or any of those, Boston would make sense. But here's the difference. The DC area had 3 locations that Amazon could pick and choose from. It helps that Jeff Bezos owns a home there. He owns a newspaper there. So it makes sense. But I wasn't looking at it from that angle. I chose Atlanta because of all the reasons I mentioned. I still didn't think it would be DC. And I thought DC wouldn't be good for many different reasons. One, land is expensive there. Even when you go into Virginia and other places, Maryland, it's expensive, right? However, Alexandria, Virginia is kind of similar to what you would see probably. Now, I've never been there. But just looking at images of Alexandria, Virginia, it really reminds me kind of like a more active Bellevue, right? It's kind of hoity-toity like Bellevue, but it seems to be a much more busier area, right? It's along the DC area line and all of that, the metro line. So it makes sense. Washington, D.C. makes sense too, because obviously it has a tremendous amount of tech workers. You don't have to find a way for people to come into the city. It's not like Indianapolis or Columbus, Ohio, which never had a chance, to be honest with you. I mean, if Cincinnati didn't have a chance, then I know Indianapolis nor Columbus would have a chance. Nashville didn't have a chance. Doesn't make any sense. To me, I think those were just put in there just to kind of throw people off. I never thought they had a chance. Pittsburgh didn't make sense, even though people thought it did. If Seattle feels like a company town, then Pittsburgh definitely would make it feel like a company town. It's a smaller city than Seattle. Philadelphia makes sense, but there's other places that would be a better fit. Also, no offense to people in Philadelphia. I don't mean to be rude, but Amazon, Jeff Bezos even said it has to be a place where people want to be, where they want to go. So I don't see Philadelphia being one of those places. That doesn't mean that Philadelphia is not a great city. Doesn't mean that Philadelphia doesn't have great transportation and cultural amenities, because they do. But there are other cities that beat that. Boston's an example of that. DC's an example of that. There's others. They beat the city. I mean, heck, Philadelphia beats Seattle in a lot of things. So it's really, from a logistical standpoint, it has to be a city that makes sense. It has to be a city that people know about. And one of the most famous cities in the country outside of New York and Chicago would be Washington, D.C., right? It just makes sense. Now, they're not going to remember that it's in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, which is rumored to be the place that Jeff Bezos is in deep conversation with. And really, some of the folks there was a person that leaked it. And one of the folks of the higher-ups really and truly sent a very mean tweet out about that person. So anyhow, could it be that this is where it's going to go? Possibly. I mean, when I'm looking at Alexandria, Virginia, there's a lot of stuff to do, right? It is a pretty vibrant city. And, of course, D.C. is close by. Here's what makes Alexandria a place that I think is head and shoulders above some of the other places, when you really stop and think about it. Yeah, it's not right in the middle of a big city and all of that type of stuff. It's basically a suburb. And I got to be careful with that, because people really get upset when you name a city a suburb. But where I'm from, it's considered to be a suburb of D.C. It may not be a suburb of D.C. So folks from Alexandria, don't get upset with me if it's not considered to be a suburb. But anyway, and it has a direct shot right into D.C. D.C. has 2 area airports, major international airports. So to me, I could see it. The part that throws me off is politics. It's a political area, obviously. So that's why it wasn't on my radar. And for 2, it's a cold area. Winters there can be kind of rough. It's not as bad as in other places, but it can be kind of rough. So I'm the first to admit that I was wrong choosing Atlanta. Now, keep in mind, Amazon has not confirmed where it's going to actually go. They're going to make the announcement soon, supposedly. But DC makes sense. It's already expensive there. People get paid a lot of money there. It's not a stretch. Everything checks off, right? It's to me, the DC area, just like the Boston area, New York, some of these other places, they make good sense. Places like Denver did make sense to me. It's too close to Seattle, and it's a small city, just to be honest with you. LA doesn't make sense because really and truly it's just on the same time zone as us, and it's not far enough west. Austin is a small city too, and it doesn't have any mass transit. Again, super close to us. So none of those places really made sense to me. Dallas, maybe, but again, I think it's still a little bit too far west, and it's just not, it's a place that people probably want to be in, but I didn't see that. Miami, Hurricane Alley, I just didn't see that. It's a place people definitely want to go to, has a massive international airport, But again, I just didn't see that. Property there can be pretty pricey as well. But apparently, I mean, they're coming to DC, which DC and Seattle, their prices are very similar in a lot of respects. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think. Do you think it's going to be Alexandria, Virginia, which is what's been rumored? Anyhow, hope you guys are having a great day. Tomorrow is Monday. Anyway, until next time, I will see you. Take care.